I think Kenny would be a top on my list for sure. You know,
A top or a bottom? The prop guy forgot to heat up the hot tub.
Oh, so it was freezing cold.
You know what cold water does to a dude, right?
She was definitely not using sex. She was just sitting behind her desk and going,
Yes.
He must have something so great because Judy.
Honey,
it's like,
we know what it is. We know
we've seen
what
it.
Gary has. I could not believe that moment. I was like, damn.
So can I just be pretty for a day?
Can I just
please?
be pretty for a
just
day?
for one day.
Welcome to Seaview Circle. This is our recap podcast where we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future. We do all this in service to our end goal of determining just how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is.
I haven't even depuffed my eyes yet.
I know.
Come
It's
on.
been a long morning.
Can we start like in about 5 more
I
minutes?
know. I'm sorry. We got to get going.
Jeez.
We got to go. Now, along the way, we also talk about fashions, vintage fashions and styles, and perhaps some filming locations that are long since gone. Something like that. My name is Brady.
I'm Doug.
Yes, and we are here to discuss Knots Landing Season 2.
Abby.
Abby. Yes.
Can you
Abby.
tell?
If you
All
really
about
want to know how
Abby.
this is done, check out Donna Mills' 1986 VHS tape. The eyes have it.
Yeah, she taught us a lot
She
about
taught us a lot,
depuffing your eyes.
We want to just say we're doing something a little bit differently. We're going to be focusing character by character as we go through Season 2 of Knots Landing, which is the longest running nighttime serial of its era. It ran from 1979 all the way up to 1993, 344 episodes. So we will be covering 18 of those episodes in 6 podcasts. Wait, 6 podcasts.
I think 6. Yeah, I think it's 6. I think I need to take this off.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting a little warm
If
now.
you would like to message us, how can people do that, Doug? Oh my gosh,
Well-
I got to fix my hair.
And you got to take your cucumber seeds out of your eyes.
I know, right?
So if you'd like to email us or make a comment, you can email us at seeviewcircle@gmail.com. Remember, it's SEEVIEW circle. That's also our handle for our Instagram, so you could comment there. And perhaps one of your questions might end up on a future Untying the Knot segment.
We don't have an Untying the Knot segment for this particular episode because there's just so much to discuss about Abby. Abby is the first person that we are going to be covering in this new format for Season 2. We're basically going to be tracking what Abby does all throughout the season and talking about kind of like our favorite moments, our favorite lines, stuff like that. And then we're going to actually spend more time on the 3 episodes where we feel she's kind of like the central character. So one thing that's really good, I think, about these first 2 seasons and maybe the 3rd season too, which we'll find out in a rewatch perhaps, is that they kind of focus specific episodes on characters and kind of dole out the storylines nicely. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was interesting looking at it in this kind of way, rather than just going by episode, you can kind of see how they're building the character. And especially with the case of Abby, you know, we have only ever seen her for a moment. So you then get this progression of where her character is going. And so it starts off a certain way and then it kind of arcs to the end of the season.
And you feel like you kind of know who this person is by the end of the season, which is interesting because she comes in just nobody knowing who she is or that she even exists, right?
And
Up
I
until
would
season
say,
2.
I mean, obviously we've seen the show before, so, but when you see it again, you're like at the beginning, you're thinking, oh, so wholesome. And then it's just so funny because we know it's not going in that direction. But anyway, it's just interesting.
We'll cover
to
it
see
all
again.
in just a moment. But I did want to say we had a little message from the networks here. This is kind of an homage to what Luscious Massacre said on her podcast. You know, we need to see some good viewership on these Knots Landing episodes because there are so many episodes, so many seasons of this show. So in order for us to continue with our coverage of Knots Landing, which you all have been kind of waiting for some months, we will admit, we need to see the likes. We need to see the engagement. We need to see the comments.
Yeah, interaction is really fun for us, and I'm sure it's fun for you guys too. But I mean, that's really what drives us to do this, to be quite honest.
It's the viewership and the engagement that helps the algorithm bring more people to our show. So, you know, it's not an Abby or a JR threat here, but, you know, if we don't have the good viewership, then we might have to focus on other shows where we get a lot more interaction.
Yeah, so just, you know what I always do?
The network is calling. The network is calling.
Yeah, what I always do is when I look at anything on YouTube, for instance, I just like it immediately and then I watch the rest. That's an easy thing to just say like, hey, everybody, just like it once and, you know, move on. It's all good.
And subscribe. We're looking for more subscribers to our YouTube channel and also to our Spotify. And you can also ring that little bell for notifications. That helps you to see when our new episodes drop right away.
And you know the best thing about it? It's free.
Oh my gosh.
It's free.
Oh my gosh.
What's free? Especially right now. Nothing.
All right. We are now going to dive into season 2 of Knots Landing, and we are going to discuss Abby's arrival to Knots Landing. It happens right in episode 1. The story is that she's there to sort of help Sid in a time of need. He has a legal issue, which we'll discuss in another episode. But she's there to offer her support because actually in the story, if you remember, he had just gone up to help her pack for her move.
Right, because she's breaking up with her husband, Jeff. And isn't it like they're in San Luis Obispo, which is a couple hours away from at least Los Angeles. So probably about the same from Knots Landing.
And she's going to be moving with her kids, Brian and Olivia, to San Diego. And so what happens to her brother happens on the way back from San Luis Obispo when he was helping her pack up her boxes. And so she kind of feels guilty and she goes down to offer her support. When her blue station wagon turns down Seaview Circle for the first time, I swear it is just like Jaws. The residents of Knots Landing ain't ready. The cul-de-sac can't take Abby Farragut Cunningham. And immediately she sort of sees all this activity going on this very tiny cul-de-sac in this community in the Los Angeles area. So what does she do in that first episode?
What I remember, the first thing that she kind of does is that she's kind of pawning the children off on other people in the cul-de-sac. What she likes is there are plenty of people there. There's other children. So there's a built-in babysitting service for her, especially, you know, you got to imagine she's been married, right? She's been up in San Luis Obispo. We don't know what her life was like up there, but certainly she's probably got some freedom now, which we're going to see.
She wants a taste of that, but she's got these pesky children, especially that young Brian, who just is always with that trumpet,
that
away
trumpet
with absolutely no melody.
No, it's a harmonica trumpet.
Oh, okay.
So I know those. I mean, I played the trumpet for a long time, but I think somebody had given me one of those stupid harmonica trumpets that really irritating. It's almost as irritating as those plastic horns that the people go.
Yeah,
those are
if that
terrible.
was my child, I would also pawn that child off on the neighbor so I could go on a date.
Yeah, sure.
I think the only kind of moment of note, I think, other than her first arrival in her Volvo wearing her little cute blue top, is when there's a get-together at the Fairgates house to kind of discuss everything that's going on, and they have everybody kind of over. So she's able to meet the neighbors, and she meets Kenny for a little bit, and it's very clear that there's some dispute going on in that marriage. And then she meets Richard, and she meets Gary, and she actually sits herself on the couch right in between those two.
Yeah, I noticed that first image that I saw of her, I was like, oh, she's holding court.
So that's foreshadowing already for those two characters in particular. And she kind of flirts, I think, with Gary. She says something about the Texan Ewings or something like that. So you can kind of already see where her mindset is and how it is different maybe from the other women on the cul-de-sac.
Right.
Sid gives some backstory to the relationship. He says she's 14 years younger than he is and that she's never quite caught up with him. But she adds, I'm trying. And Karen is not a fan. You can also see that right away in that first episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some issues, and obviously she knows Abby because it's her husband's sister-in-law, right? Yeah. But I will say this, there still are moments between Karen and Abby that they still are more friendly than they are later, for sure. Like, I would sit there and go, oh, okay, they're in the car together. Or, you know.
I think that Abby wants to be friends with her, really.
Yeah.
It's Karen's the one who's always like, I can't believe it. Because Karen is the one who has more of a moral center, obviously, and Abby's more freewheeling. But you can see that Abby kind of feels like, she's just her. She's unapologetic. I think that's one thing that you learn throughout this season. She's
super unapologetic.
Yeah.
Like
she just is who she is.
Yeah. And that's her MO. And that will be her MO to the end of the show, at least to the end of when she leaves Knots Landing. Right. So that's a long time.
So moving into the second episode, which is really a continuation of the first, because it's a legal matter that we'll discuss later. Again, we see, more of this, what you were kind of talking about, that she's kind of leaning on the neighbors to help her with things. I think, is there a scene where she visit Knots Landing Motors, I think, for the first time?
Yeah.
Again, that's also sort of a foreshadowing of things to come for the season. And right away, she sees Gary there, and she is into it.
She's into
batting those baby blues.
Yeah, she started to work her magic. Her secret weapon is her sexual prowess. She's going to get whatever she wants. And you see it multiple times as this season goes on and for future seasons.
And then we move into the next episode already, and we see her again. Not only does she have interest in Gary, he's a very handsome man. And trust me, we'll talk about him.
We have a new acronym for him too, which we'll talk about.
We'll get to that. But she also has her sights on the other gentleman right there in the cul-de-sac. I mean, how convenient to be right there visiting and have Kenny, who's a very handsome man in the face, and he's a young buck.
I think Kenny would be a top on my list for sure.
A top or a bottom?
I love Kenny. Kenny's cute, but he's jerk, but he's cute.
So are like everybody on the
they're all
really,
kind of
as
jerks.
We'll discuss. And then we have Richard as well, who is maybe uncharacteristically sexy, but in my opinion, as a middle-aged man, I think he's kind of sexy.
I do like. Again, he's a good example of how if intelligence is sexy. That's what's sexy about him.
Right.
He's funny and he's quirky.
And he's also, I think, maybe a better dresser than the other gentleman. Yeah. Like, he's more aware. He's more like New York. He's more like hip in a way. You can tell that comes into his character. So I think Abby picks up on that as well. And you can imagine for us who've already seen season one, we're like, well, what does she see in him? But maybe she is aware that he has eyes for her too immediately, right? So she is an opportunist in this moment, and she uses anybody who's around her, and especially the men, again, batting those eyes to get whatever she wants in that moment. So what we didn't mention in episode 2 by the end, she's kind of decided, hey, maybe I'll decide to stick around for a while.
And conveniently, there is a house that is available on the cul-de-sac because of the situation that had been going on in the one storyline with Sid.
Right.
People didn't want to be necessarily on the cul-de-sac at that point.
And conveniently, the house is right in between the Averys and the Wards, featuring two men that, Abby could potentially be interested in.
So she announces that she's rented it, and she's the new neighbor.
Month to month. She hasn't decided yet.
It's easy.
She's gonna stay.
Works out good for her. She got babysitters.
There's already a pool. She takes advantage of the pool right away. In fact, she's too busy suntanning by the pool to really unpack, so she enlists all the other gentlemen to do it. She sees Kenny. She says, finally, a man. And then she also then turns to Richard, on the cul-de-sac, just moments after flirting with Kenny, and says, just come over on Saturday and help me initiate the pool. Right? Is that the line?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Later on in the episode, this is again episode 3, she goes on a date, right? Finally, her own date at night. And I guess Val's not available. So she asks her nephew, Eric, to watch her children, Olivia and Brian. And this is crazy because she comes over, and even Eric cannot deny, how gorgeous his aunt is. He says, gee, Aunt Abby, you look real neat. And she winks at him, right?
And at this point, too, he's starting to definitely look very rock and roll teenage. So it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility that he might have a crush on Aunt Abby. That's what I was getting.
But of course, Abby corrects him and says, don't call me that. Right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's so Abby. Did you clock that weird white palm tree art piece? I don't know. It's like quilted or paper mache.
Yeah. That was very
I don't
strange.
know what that is. It's like 80s art moderne.
I don't know.
She's also the queen of glass blocks, although I don't think they're in this season yet, but we'll see them in the future season.
Oh, glass blocks were very fashionable back in the 80s,
Now, what's crazy about all this is that she stays out pretty much all night long, and to the point where Karen is concerned, where is my son? So she calls over there, whatever. Eric says maybe she's not home yet or whatever. So then Karen has to go over there and relieve him of the babysitting duties because, he has school the next morning, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
So she comes back, and Karen reads her the riot act.
Oh, yeah. And of course, what we find out as well is that not much time has gone on. This is actually the first night that the kids have spent in the new house. And Abby is like, I don't know, she's gone till like 3 a.m. or something.
It's wild.
And she's very dismissive of what Karen says. You just see like, she doesn't really care about these kids. I mean, she does, but she doesn't. They're kind of like...
I think like what you said is very true. She's now has a taste of freedom and she wants to explore that. And the kids are just going to have to be on the back burner for a while. And she can let these other people take care of them. She's got this built-in support, probably even more than she ever would have imagined to have, especially more than she would have had she moved to San Diego.
Totally.
Despite how many sailors she might have enjoyed hooking up with down there. Moving into episode 4, which is Chance of a Lifetime. This is an episode, I think, focusing on Richard and Laura. And it's actually written by John Plachette. There's a great moment where Abby, she's now looking for a job. Okay, that's a plot point here. She's looking for a job. So she's going on an interview and maybe she's running late. So she's like, Richard, could you take my kids to school? Which is just crazy. Like anybody. She'll
pass them off to anybody.
And there's a really cute moment because, of course, he has a flat tire, right? And so then like Laura has to come out and then maybe she has to like drive the kids to school because he has the flat tire and she's really has to go to work, right? So it's like passing the buck. Later in this episode, Laura's working late and she calls Richard to ask him to feed Jason dinner, but there's nothing in the fridge. So they go out and pick up Chikorama. Chicken box. I don't know. Is that some sort of John Plachette joke? Because guess who shows up?
Abby and Olivia and Brian are magically there.
Yes.
And they all grab some food to go and then they take it back home.
Yes. And this gives Abby the perfect opportunity to spend some alone time with Richard in that fabulous backyard of the Averys. They're lounging on those green, yellow, and white chaise lounges. And Abby's questioning Richard whether all of Laura's long hours are getting to him.
Do you think those greasy fingers might be finger licking good at this point?
I don't know, but Abby was using them to poke inside Richard's shirt. Because remember, she's to be like, wow, I didn't know how much chest hair you had.
Oh, God.
And that's just, an example of the crazy over-the-top flirting that she does.
Yeah, and she gets more brazen as the season goes on. And in fact, she doesn't care that Laura's around.
No, she doesn't care that
problem.
Laura's around. She doesn't care that anybody's around because, again, like we say, she is just unapologetically who she is, and everybody else kind of be damned. It's like she's almost like, well, just get used to it. Like, you don't like it, too bad. She's very confident, and that is, I think, something that the actress Donna Mills has said in years past, that even though a lot of people saw her as maybe like a villain or as this conniving B word, she learned a lot from this character. She learned a lot from Abby about kind of standing up for yourself and being kind of proud of who you are and going after what you want. And she certainly does.
She sure does. They're talking about the relationship that Abby had, I guess, with Jeff. And she had said that her husband needed her to be drunk in order to be sexually compatible or something to that effect. And then she comes out and says, would you like more wine or something like that? I don't know. It was just very like...
alluding to the fact that, yes, it's time for them maybe to take things to the next level.
Maybe they need to go to the next level.
Well, the next level in the next episode is only that she has enlisted Richard. He's basically just like a dog, like following around, doing anything she wants, because now he's planting flowers in her backyard.
Yeah, that's right. Now he's a gardener.
Yeah, he's a gardener. He's a plumber. He is a mover. And, well, later he is a plumber in other ways as well. And there's a little bit of a joke.
Yeah, and then, of course, Karen is seeing this. Yeah. And she's getting more angry. I think she mentions to Abby, what you're doing is just not cool. And Abby says something about Richard, he's just like a big baby. Like, she's passing it off like it's not a big deal. It's just whatever. But
she calls him like a pitiful little man. And she says something like, someone needs to take care of this man because Laura's too busy with her career and he's always alone. But I mean, that's not really enough for Karen. That's not good of an excuse, especially since, Laura is Karen's friend. Laura is not Abby's friend, right?
Yeah.
So she doesn't see that. I think the first time that we really see Abby in all her glory is episode 6, which is called Step 1. And in this particular episode, we still see the same pattern, okay? We still see Abby sort of making a play for Richard and also enlisting the help of others to take care of her children, right? So there's a dinner party that maybe it's at the Avery house and Laura is late. She's been at work or whatever. And then I think at some point she says to him, "Oh, Richard, there's a gurgle. My sink has a gurgle. Would you come over and help me with the gurgle?"
Help me with my gurgle.
So Abby uses that sink excuse to get him to come over to the house. And I think it's at that time when maybe Val drops off the kids again and she sees that Richard's there. And I love it. Olivia says to be like, or Brian says, "Oh gosh, is he over here again?"
Yeah. I know. It's always the out of the mouths of babes. Like, quotes come from the precocious children.
Yes,
and her kids are pretty precocious.
Oh, for sure. Olivia says to Abby, "Oh yeah, I was teaching Val how to do your makeup."
Right, that's right. And I know that, isn't there a scene later in it's one of these episodes where Olivia's doing like mommy's makeup.
Yeah.
Like, so she's learning like all the tricks early
on. And of course, these are the tricks that were referenced in Donna Mills' The Eyes Have It video.
Yes.
But no, I think that was a really good build also. I mean, this isn't specifically about Abby, but it's about Olivia, because Olivia's relationship to Val definitely grows throughout the seasons. And it starts here in this moment when Abby is so did I say distracted or distracted? Can I say that?
You might have said distracted on accident.
So on that note, Richard is over at Abby's pool to help clean the pool. And they decide to go into the hot tub.
Yeah, and you know what? On that note, I actually have something that I prepared earlier, which I thought would be very in keeping. So
no poison in this, right?
No,
okay.
Pink champagne.
Maybe we should record this in the hot tub. Oh, that would have been great.
But I don't know about that. It's going to take too long to set that up.
We'd be like fully red by the end of the episode. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Pink shampoo.
This is great. So yeah, they go into the hot tub, and there's a little bit of BTS information that has been reported on many occasions, that classic hot tub scene when they filmed that in the morning out there on the cul-de-sac at the actual pool behind the house that is Abby's, the prop guy forgot to heat up the hot tub.
Oh, so it was freezing cold.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
So they had to film because of timing, production, whatever. They had to do it anyway.
Terrible.
So those moments when Richard is kind of like, he's like a crab clawing on Abby's back or whatever, and she goes like this, it's really because she was freezing,
Well, and I don't, depending on what time of year.
Exactly.
Because I know, like, as I've spoken about this before, but growing up in that neighborhood, and it gets freezing.
So then to have to do a love scene in that.
Yeah, do a love scene in there.
You know what cold water does to a dude, right? Anyway, so they
might not know.
This is acting, right? Okay, so they have this scene, and of course, it's really campy, it's really kitschy, because they're basically pouring the champagne into the hot tub and drinking it, and they're just so carefree.
I mean, I love that, too, because they don't even have to worry about draining the hot tub. I once spilled a cup of coffee in the hot tub when I went out there, and it was almost disastrous. I didn't actually dump the water out, but I had to add a lot of chemicals. So, champagne.
So I'm sure they had to add some chemicals into that too to clean up whatever they left behind.
Whatever else.
But it's really funny. It's actually almost, I would say, like soft core dialogue here, the way they're kind of going on. But in a way, it's kind of sexy. It's kind of sexy. I'm sorry. I actually kind of liked it.
Well, you do have a thing for Richard, so I mean,
yeah, it's true. But again, I think people might wonder, like, well, what does Abby see in him or whatever? But in a way, I kind of think their pairing is kind of hot. If it is only for those, few episodes or whatever, it's fine. She moves on. She moves on to bigger and better things. And what's interesting also, and we'll talk about it in the Richard and Laura episode, is that this is clearly just a writing device here for this moment. Like, when you talk about the trajectory of the season, they know where all these characters are going. So they're pushing people like together like this, that maybe it doesn't really make sense, but it then puts them into other directions. So that's what we see here happening. What's really funny at the end of that episode is that there's this ERA benefit at the high school, and Karen and Diana are performing, which of course we will talk about that in another episode.
We're going to talk about that at length.
But what's really funny is that there's an empty seat next to Richard. Laura's sitting on one side, and then there's an empty seat, and Abby just decides to sit right there. And they had just, done the champagne frolic earlier that day, and you have her sitting next to him, next to his wife. Women's lib.
Women's lib.
In episode 7, this is Breach of Faith, we have an interesting moment in the beginning where it kind of sets things into a different direction. Abby visits Knots Landing Motors, and she runs into Judy Trent talking to Gary. And so she overhears this exchange, and we'll talk about Judy and Earl Trent in the Gary and Val episode in more depth. But basically, Judy is the husband of this guy that Gary is helping through AA. But Judy has a shine to Gary, and so she's trying to get in on that piece, right? I mean, do you blame her?
Oh, she's totally, she's in.
And so Gary says something like, you can call me anytime if you need anything, Judy. And Abby hears that, and she is curious.
Those gears are turning.
Right, because she already has designs on this gentleman as well. All right, later in the episode, there is a barbecue that is celebrating Laura's success as a new real estate agent. Did she finally pass her
She passed her exam, or she sold her first place, or I don't know, something to that effect. Like, she's on the road to making money. Didn't she sell $1 million house or something?
Yeah, it seemed weird at that time that she was already selling something.
No, I mean, it can happen. And, she's working with Scooter. So Scooter is the seasoned broker.
Right.
So maybe they're working on something together, and he plugged her in because, he likes her.
What's interesting about this particular barbecue is that Richard actually burns the steaks again. And he did that in the other barbecue in season 1.
Because he's not paying attention.
This time he's doing it because he has his hands all over Abby in front of everyone. And is it Karen who first points it out?
I think it's Karen who points it out, and then, maybe Sid said something first. Sid said to Abby, he's like, cool it with Richard. He's like giving her a warning. And then she's like, oh, he's like an octopus. He's got his hands all over me.
Right. His hands go everywhere.
Yeah. And then
they do. And you can see that. He's very much touchy-feely with her pretty much in every scene up to this point this season.
And it's getting embarrassing because, let's face it, they're at the Avery's house.
Everybody's there.
Laura's there. It's just like...
And she's the woman of the hour, She's the person who's being
And I think
celebrated.
even Karen says something about it.
Karen says, you're making a complete ass of yourself. And then he says, my specialty. Which is really true of that character for the first half of the season, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right?
He's definitely very unlikable at this point.
He even says, because he's jealous of Laura, let's be honest. He's jealous that she is achieving success at a much faster rate than he is. He keeps failing, but in this moment, he likens Laura's rise to success in real estate. He says something like, in the movie version, she'd be played by Joan Crawford.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that's not...
And even Abby can see that and what?
And at this point, the Mommy Dearest would have been out too already.
Right,
so it was fresh.
Yeah.
It was a fresh.
I'll bet you that was a fresh reference.
That was a fresh Mommy Dearest reference.
Yeah, totally.
It's right around the same period.
Abby didn't appreciate it. She actually stands up for Laura in that moment. So it's then where you kind of are seeing this turn again for the Abby character. She is tiring of Richard. She can see that he is actually a jerk. She doesn't need him. She can find something better.
Totally.
The main focus of the following episode, Scapegoats, is really this catalyst, which is going to bring us throughout the whole season, which is the business at Knots Landing Motors. And for Abby, she has now started a new job at Knots Landing Motors as their bookkeeper. She says to Gary and Sid she's there to add a woman's touch to the
she
to
sure
the dealership.
is.
Yes.
And we start seeing how she is scheming and how she is driven, and it really starts revealing the Abby character, which is set for the rest of the show.
Where Gary is going to Knots Landing Motors to do his job, it is Abby who's looking to sort of cash in on opportunities that arise. So even if that means eavesdropping on this conversation or just paying more attention than Gary is, let's be honest. Gary kind of almost lets things happen to him.
Yeah, he's a bit dumb.
Right?
I mean, cute and dumb.
Yeah.
He's always like that.
Right.
So he gets himself into situations,
into trouble.
When he's sold or bought the parts
That
from
happens
these
here, yeah.
the Orchid car people,
Right.
he's in trouble now because he's agreed
Basically
to
what's
purchase.
happened is they purchased this fleet of cars, and then what they didn't realize was that there was this service contract built into it that was going to then end up costing them more money. So it wasn't as great of a deal as they thought. But then these same guys, Frank and Roy, who, to be honest, I could never even figure out which one was Frank and which one was Roy until
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Matter.
I think Frank is the more kind of like cartoonish mob guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so they basically decide to offer this parts deal to the dealership. And what we later find out is that they are stolen parts. And so Gary's already realizing that he's kind of in hot water here and that this is maybe some sort of like extortion plot here by these guys who are kind of like, again, like comic book mobsters, if you will. And so it is Abby who's kind of overhearing this.
Well, she listens in on the, what do you call it?
The intercom.
The intercom that you would have back in the day. She just turns it on so she can hear everything in that room.
And this is an opportunity for her really to kind of get her feet dug into Not Slanting Motors business, but also to become an asset to Gary, which is what she really wants to do.
Yeah.
Right?
She's useful to him.
Frank and Roy are no joke. In fact, they start suggesting there's going to be some violence if they don't make this deal and they don't pay for these parts. And the price tag is $50K, right?
$50,000, lover.
Yes. So they have to come up with this money. And obviously, they kind of made this deal like kind of a gentleman's agreement, right? There was no contract, but there was like a handshake or something.
But now they're going to hold him to it like big time.
So, and he's done all this without Sid's knowledge. So now he has to come up with this money to pay for these parts. And so Abby says, well, don't you have a really rich family? Why don't you maybe ask JR to front the money for these stolen parts?
Right.
These are the wheels that are spinning. Now, did you notice the one thing about Abby in this particular episode is that her hair just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger and bigger. It's like the confidence building within this character, and it is expressed through her hair. Because at the beginning of the season, it's very kind of soft and just kind of down. It's not what we're used to with this
She's
character.
at this point getting that like real big 80s hair, which I love. Wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is she's mentioning JR. The way I saw it as a writing tool, we need that season 2 JR kind of plug for the show.
Right.
And we've already
crossover.
Yeah, and we did see the other character, Kristen, who was also on that season of Dallas, right?
Sure.
So they've already done
because somebody shot JR, and it might be that woman.
Right. So there's all these plugins are starting, and we do see JR a few times.
Yeah.
So,
and I'd say they're pretty good scenes. We'll get to it in a moment. But before we close out of this episode, we should talk about that last scene, which is when Frank and Roy come to Not Slanting Motors, and they basically kind of rough up Abby in front of Gary, which kind of gives him maybe, some sympathy to her, right? But they drop like this big heavy wrench on his cowboy boot. So they're not joking around.
No, they're not messing around. It's kind of getting scary. We're going into dangerous territory here, and we know that they have to deal with this situation at any cost. So it's really about Abby's trying to convince Gary to speak to JR, but at this point, they haven't quite figured that out.
But it happens soon, because in the next episode, which is really the first one that I feel is really centered on Abby, JR comes to town, and he is offering her this opportunity to become something bigger for Gary, to become this bigger asset, to become something that he can sort of rely on and take away some of that attention from Val. Right?
And it's funny because you do see pretty quickly that she's also lost interest in Richard.
Yes.
And so she's moving on to Gary. And even JR says something in this episode that she's not really interested in the $50,000.
Yes.
She just wants Gary.
JR is shrewd. He can see right through this.
Right through her.
Right? And so it's really interesting because I think there's a moment between Val and JR where they have this like little fight. Because, Valian cannot stand JR because of what his family did to her, kind of stealing their daughter away from them, Gary and Val, right? Lucy. So she forever hates him. And then, of course, that makes JR very anti-Val, really, and just sees her as this like weak person. And so when Abby breezes in and with all this confidence, he even says, "Oh, I wish my brother had married someone like you."
Yeah, in a way, they are very similar. And I think you might have mentioned this before. Maybe we're going to talk about the fact that the writers have kind of written her to be the female version of the JR for this television show.
Right. David Jacobs had started off with the Knots Landing concept, right? But then it wasn't flashy enough. So then CBS said, could you give me something more like a saga? So he came back with Dallas, which is much more flashy, much more wild. And then when that was a hit, they said, oh, what about that Knots Landing show? Why don't you get that back into the play so that we can use that as a spin-off from the very popular Dallas? And they kind of designed that so that there was no JR, so that then in season 2, they could start this and build this character, but make it a woman. And I think it was a really good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. She is, if you want to call her the female JR, Abby, whatever, she's really the only one from those 80s serials who was really like this in any of those soap operas. I mean, you could say that I guess Angela Channing was a real ballbuster, let's be honest.
She was, but she was never
using sex, was she?
She was definitely not using sex. She was just sitting behind a desk and going,
yes,
and drinking some wine and like, well, tell them to go do this.
But she can turn a phrase, that Angela Channing.
I love that show too. Yeah. We should maybe someday we'll do a Falcon Crest.
We should. I really do like that show. We see this in this particular episode because there is this kind of moral question involved here with the JR, because Abby goes to JR. JR says, I will give you the $50K, but I'm only going to give you the $50K if my brother asks for it, right? Like this brother relationship between these two has always been contentious. And so he really kind of wants to see his brother suffer. This kind of happened in that first episode that he came also to Knots Landing about the offshore oil drilling.
Right.
And that was the whole thing, is that they all wanted Gary to get involved with JR, and JR only wanted to talk to them if it was Gary who came and sort of like bowed down to him in a way, or kind of showed his place within the family, right? And so the thing is that Gary tells Abby who this man is or whatever, and how he's really business savvy. He doesn't really care about things, doesn't care about the environment. He doesn't care about what he's doing. But there's a spark that goes off in Abby where you see, oh, she doesn't really care about that stuff. She doesn't care about the ethics. The business excites her. So in a way, she's sort of like taking Gary now and using him as clay to be like, okay, we need to make you a little bit more like me right now, or push you down maybe even, and let me just take care of things, which she kind of does for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
All right, about halfway through this episode, this is called A Family Matter, by the way. There's another storyline that's going on concurrently. But in this particular scene, we have Abby wearing this crazy purple mohair sweater, and she's got these like 1930s eyebrows. She's looking fantastic.
Yeah, she looks so great. I think they purposefully made her look film noir. You know, she was looking really like glammo.
Yeah, glammo.
I mean, maybe we'll have a picture of that. I hope.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's there, and JR has been invited to Knots Landing Motors, and they're showing him this engine that Sid has been working on that is supposedly going to get better gas mileage. And so that's very intriguing for JR, whose business is selling oil. He could see this as a potential threat to his business, but he he's very clever. He's very shrewd. He thinks, oh, okay, well, listen, I don't care where the money comes from. You know, if this can revolutionize things, then I want to be on that team as well, because somebody else will come up with the idea maybe, right? So this is already kind of building for later in the season, but it is then I think that Abby invites him over to a dinner party. She wants to have her first dinner party at the house.
Right.
And he wants to kind of get Gary and JR, together so they can talk about this. This great little scene, right? At the
doesn't one of the children, again, I think Olivia says something that like she called the caterer or somebody says that
Karen says, I can't believe you're cooking.
You can't believe you're cooking. And then somebody mentions,
Abby.
I think Olivia said, she called a caterer.
Yes, it's classic Abby once again. This is that scene where she's wearing that crazy outfit with like the barrette. It's like very sparkly. I think there were like a lot of like press shots of this moment, because again, this really is the character of Abby's first featured episode, right? So I don't know that they really get anything accomplished in that particular scene. Maybe it's more between Val and JR. Again, there's like this.
Yeah, there's definitely a confrontation between those two. You know, JR spoils that dinner, and so they're out of there. They're not hanging around.
And I think that there is a scene later on, we already referenced it, where JR says, oh, I wish that Gary had married you instead of Val. And that's when he says, I can see right through you. You just want Gary, not the money. But by the end of the episode, he does give Gary the money.
But he gives him an extra $50K.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, that's like really hooking that guy in. And so eventually he pays, I guess they pay it off because...
Yeah, they had to pay it off because it's mentioned later.
We'll talk about it, but basically these are stolen parts. So they end up having to resell them at a higher cost, and they end up actually making a profit, I guess, to pay off JR, but also for Knots Landing Motors as well. Yeah. It gets very complicated.
It's all kept away from Sid, essentially.
But basically what we can say about this first episode of Abby is that we can see that this business world excites her, and it's something that she's never tapped into before as just a mother living with Jeff and the kids up in San Luis Obispo. And it's a trajectory that's going to continue throughout the series.
And again, her looks also are reflecting this change of her being like she's
emboldened.
Yeah, she's emboldened, and she's going to be the diva of the
see
show.
What her effect is just physically and just in communication, body language, all these men. She could see how it gets her what she wants so easily.
It's just so easy.
Wouldn't it be great to be Abby?
I guess it would be. I don't know. I mean, I never thought I wanted to be an Abby, but I do think that sometimes people who are pretty like that, they've got people in their hands like putty, right?
I don't think I want the same things as Abby wants.
No.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see how what that power would be like.
For a day.
Just to melt
Maybe for
people.
A day.
Just to melt them.
Can I just be pretty for a day?
Can I just
please?
be pretty for a day?
Just for one day, just to try it out.
Moving into the next episode, I don't know if she feels now that she has like the support of JR, she can even go even further. But Abby is clearly on a mission in this particular episode. She overhears once again Gary sort of like making plans with Judy Trent.
Judy,
right?
Judy.
What did she say to Gary?
Oh, she said something like, she's awfully pretty. It's too bad she doesn't smile more. Like she said, I mean, the character playing Judy Trent is definitely very...
She's a handsome woman.
She's hard.
She's like a Pamela Lynch.
Yeah, she's like Falcon a Pamela Crest. Lynch from Falcon Crest. She's just
hard,
very
like a Nagel. She's like a Nagel.
Right, she actually has some pretty cool clothes. Yeah. I'll give her that. Like she's very stylized, but she's definitely like...
Yes.
Like that.
She's the antithesis of Abby, let's be honest. Who is, again, we're seeing this is kind of like her colors are mauve and pink and lavender and this kind of more sexy, alluring kind of vibe. So this is a great example of Abby's manipulations in this episode, because what she does is she calls the restaurant and she confirms what time this reservation is. So she pretends that she is like Gary's secretary, just confirming the reservation or whatever, because then she has that knowledge to then set it up so that Val can walk in on those two having this dinner. So Abby invites Val to dinner at somewhere else, and then they kind of go for after dinner.
They go, let's go have an after dinner drink.
So it looks more coincidental.
They arrive at the restaurant, and Valine sees Gary with Judy.
I think it's Abby who points out, isn't that Gary?
Yeah, she has to point it out too. I mean, here's the thing. In reality, you could go to some busy restaurant, and if it was me, I'm not going to necessarily notice everybody in there. I'm in the zone.
Right.
I'm I'm here to eat dinner. And
Abby's in the zone too. She's in the zone to show Val that Gary is having a romantic meeting with Judy. In fact, he is wearing a suit and tie to this romantic dinner. So there is this moment, and they kind of like try to have some semblance of normality here, but it just doesn't work. Val can see right through it, and she storms out, and I think then Gary runs after her. Of course, we'll talk all about this in their episode, but the interaction here is really between Judy and Abby, where Judy says, oh, I can see right through this manipulation. I can tell that this was all fabricated to, make me look like the bad person. Judy says something like, yeah, I'll wreck the marriage, but I'll be the one who picks up the pieces. And you can tell that Abby's like, no, I'll be the one who picks up the pieces. You'll be trash.
Exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It is that first kind of really soapy moment, I think, that we see in this show that's not based in like business or whatever. It's like a thing that is used, this like deception to reveal something to somebody else.
I think what's always kind of interesting about Gary's character, though, is he must have something so great because at this point, there's like 3 women that want him. He's got Valine, he's got Abby, and he's got Judy.
Honey,
it's like,
we know what it is. We know
we've seen
what
it.
Gary has.
Did we talk about it yet? We didn't really.
No.
So we have this new acronym is, so every time we see Ted Shackelford with his top off in bed, we
usually
just say,
wearing those little blue shorts.
Yeah, usually the blue shorts. Take it off, Ted.
Take it off, Ted. Take it off, Ted. When we get to the Gary and Val, we promise you we are going to just pummel you with images of Gary in bed or walking out of the bathroom or whatever.
Well, they're using a lot of it. They've been really using much more in season 2 than they have in season 1.
Exactly.
So we will talk about it more.
Exploiting that poor man, Ted Shackelford.
Yeah, and I mean, he's wearing the tightest clothes possible. Every shirt is literally like poured in, and the pants too.
Yeah. It's that great magazine article, I think that's from a later season, where he's working out. I don't know what magazine it's for. And the headline is, Ted hates it, but he has to do it, which is this like these workout.
You got to say that's showbiz,
so
kids.
He can have that body, right?
If you're going to be the sex,
he's a sex symbol.
He's a
himbo.
The show,
Himbo.
then you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to work.
So yeah, and clearly Abby is, fixing her eyes onto this big hunk of man, but she still has the Richard thing dangling on the side, and he's still trying to get in.
Well, he's still trying to get in. He tries to borrow some sugar from her, and like
euphemism.
Yeah, and then
doesn't he just take some champagne over to her house? And Laura actually is there, and she watches out of her bedroom window to see him going over. And I think he even glances back up, and you're just like, gosh, this dude is terrible.
Yeah. And he was not invited to that last dinner party either, but he's looking through the window watching all of it.
In front of Laura.
He's just desperate at this point. He's super desperate.
So I think they actually do sleep together again. And then I think the next morning, it is Abby who comes out, and she sees Laura going to work, and Laura just gives her this terrible stare because Laura had seen Richard go right into her house the night before.
Yeah.
So it's just everybody knows at this point. Everybody knows what's going on.
And I think at this point, Laura does not really care either.
No.
She's
actually a very modern person, as we will learn this season, and I kind of dug it. Now, in the last scene of the episode, there has been some other stuff going on with Gary and Val and Judy, and so Judy comes to Knott's Landing Motors, where Gary basically tells her it is over. No more. You read everything into it. It was never about romance or love or anything like that. It was just sex or whatever. Of course, Abby is overhearing this as well. And there's this great moment where she kind of comes up to him, pretending this is work related. She says, Gary, you ready for me now?
That's right. That's the line.
And that's the end of it.
And I think we realize, yes, he is ready for her now.
Yes, the way has been cleared. The path has been cleared.
There's one less woman in town now.
Now we all have to do is work on that Val.
Just got to get rid of Val and we're all good, okay? Would you like a little bit more champers?
Yes, please. And after this, we're going into the hot tub, but we still have half the season left to cover.
We still have half a season to cover. Episode 11.
Episode 11. This is the second of the 3 episodes where we're focusing on Abby. She pretty much drives most of the storyline in this, or actually, really, it's the actions of her ex-husband, Jeff.
Yes.
Who we see for the first time, and I did not write down his name of the actor.
Oh, darn. You can write it down in the Chiron later.
That's happening right now? That guy? That guy?
Right there. This guy right here.
Anyway, so he arrives to drop off the kids at just the right moment. This is really the last time that Abby and Richard are kind of hooking up. And you can already tell that she is like kind of creeped out by him a little bit because he's going to be putting suntan lotion on her. And he says, oh, well, I'm going to need to take off the bikini top. He even says something like this. He goes, oh, isn't this the bathing suit you were wearing the first time that we hooked up?
I think he
and
does.
She's like, how did you remember that? Like she
creepy.
But anyway, she doesn't want to get tan lines, so she undoes it. And then Jeff comes home with the kids. I think, is it Brian or Olivia has already supplied Jeff with some information that this guy's been hanging around quite a bit, and that every time they're together, they have junk food, apparently.
Yeah. So this is planting the seeds for Jeff to start getting kind of judgmental about the way that Abby's
kind
parenting.
Of judgmental? Very judgmental.
Very judgmental.
He starts almost listing all these things. Like he was in the kitchen and he saw that there was access to all these like harmful cleaning supplies. And of course, this influence of Richard. Who is this guy? So he's kind of like adding this list of things that show that since she's moved to Knots Landing, Abby has become sort of, I don't know, reckless or preoccupied as a mother.
And then he even mentions that she has a job, because she mentions she has a job too.
Right.
So it's like she's not doing mothering full time as she was probably doing in the past. She's got part-time jobs. She's got this guy coming over.
And Jeff confirms all of this with Karen, who, let's be honest, is already kind of team Laura in this whole situation. So without like fully confirming that they're having an affair, she pretty much spells it out that they're having an affair. And then, like you said,
and she cares about those kids too.
Of course.
So I mean, that's where it's coming
niece
from.
And nephew, yeah.
Right.
And of course, there is that moment you mentioned where I think he goes to pick up the kids again or something, and then Gary shows up and he's delivering the kids because Val, who was supposed to be watching them, had to go to school. So it's like these kids are being passed around, and Jeff is like, "What is going on?"
Right. It's like there's no continuity between, no communication. It's just whatever.
Jeff confronts Abby about all of this. They have this kind of lunch or something, and I think she's sort of pissed off that this guy is second guessing her abilities as a mother. And she basically says, who I sleep with or who I have a relationship is none of your business. And I am a good mother. But Jeff sort of like doubles down on all of this. He was going to maybe give her a second chance if she said the right things, but she didn't say the right things. She's unapologetic about herself. She just is who she is. She says those words, I think, by the end of the episode, right?
Did you catch that lunch location?
That's the Odyssey, right?
Yeah, that's a place where you go for like a big celebration. So you go there like birthdays or Mother's Day or something like that.
It's not the location, though, where divorced couples would go to argue about their post-marriage relationship dynamics.
No.
Because ultimately what is revealed through all of this is that Jeff is just upset. He's vengeful that Abby has already found this like relationship with Richard so soon after divorcing. And so what does he think? Like, what? Did I not mean anything to you? So he's in a way internalizing that and then refocusing it on the children. Because what does he do?
Well, he serves her papers for full custody. So that's like, no bueno.
No bueno. And she feels the heat right away. I think this is when she goes over to the Fairgates, Karen and Sid, and she talks to them because she's looking for a lawyer that can help her navigate what she's going to have to go through with this court case. And I think it's at that point where Karen talks about the affair, right? And that's when Abby says that she's sort of helping Richard because he's this pitiful man. And Karen says something like, oh, how charitable. Like she could just see right through it. Like that's not why she's doing it. She's doing it to get her rocks off.
Right. And so she's obviously not going to use Richard as the lawyer.
Ooh.
Doesn't make
And in fact,
any sense.
the lawyer who they do choose says to Abby, you need to clean up your personal life real quick because they will go in on anything that they see as an opportunity to show that you're a bad mother. So it is at that time that she officially says, well, we are done with the Richard thing.
We're done with Richard.
I don't need him. That is not important.
Yeah.
The children are important.
I think that's what's interesting. When she breaks it off with Richard, too, he says something like, I need you. And she's like, I don't need you.
Right.
So she's brutal, but she's honest. She doesn't need him.
She does thank him for the good times, but you can tell that she's definitely hurt Richard in that moment. Now, she invites Jeff to dinner again, and I think this is where she says that the custody battle has nothing to do with the kids. It is just literally him being vindictive. And I think it is at that point where he actually admits to Abby that he does want her. Right? He does want Abby. In fact, he starts forcing himself on her.
Oh, yeah. He almost starts attacking her.
Yeah, and Abby has to push him away, and then he starts crying. And that is when he says, oh my gosh, I want you. And what's crazy here in this moment is that what does Abby do?
She sleeps with him.
She uses, again, her allure.
The power
to sort of subdue this threat. She sleeps with him, giving him what he wants so that maybe he'll back off with the custody. What happens that night is that Olivia wakes up from a nightmare and she goes in to sleep with her mother. And then Jeff can see that, oh, wow, she is actually a good mother. Clearly, it's very clear that Olivia loves her. And I think then the next morning, doesn't Olivia say something? I can't remember. Does Olivia say something like, "Oh, are you guys back together?" And Abby's like, "No, we're just friends."
But I think
friends meet up.
isn't it mentioned that he is dropping the custody suit after that?
Okay, yeah. So basically what happens the next morning is he thinks, "Oh, wow, things are great. We're going to be back together again."
Yeah, because they're having breakfast together, and he made breakfast for her and the kids.
Yes.
So it's like, it's all good again.
He thinks everything's
great.
back to normal. And Abby's like, absolutely not. That was just last night. I am still this person who is me. You never really knew who I really was inside. And you either take me as I am or you leave it. And when he realizes that this is the woman who she really is, he says, "Oh,
I'll leave it.
I'll leave it."
Yeah.
And I think it is then that he realizes, because she has said, this is not going to be good for the kids to have this custody battle. And then Karen confirms that as well, because again, she cares about the kids. It's not so much about Abby. So then he drops the custody battle.
Right. He understands that the custody battle is not the way to go, but clearly there's still something going on, because you can just see from his expression that this story is not ending, and it isn't going to end. It's going to continue.
He is up to something.
Something's up.
Yes. In the next couple episodes, there's not a lot of Abby to go around. There's some time given to other characters, but we have a storyline involving Sid and his little mechanic sidekick, Linda. We're just going to skip over this storyline and this episode altogether. But in the subsequent one, which is The Loudest Word, episode 13, this is the one where Val finds out she has colon cancer.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah. So in a surprise move, though, Abby actually shows up to offer her support before the surgery.
Yeah, that was a kind of an interesting thing to see, that they were really bringing Abby's character back to a more friendly kind of zone. I mean, if anything, though, that episode could have been in any order of the season, too. It's kind of like...
What I find interesting about the Abby character is that even in season 2, this first season, they are peppering in these moments where she does show vulnerability and where she does show that she's a good mother or she's a nice person underneath it all. And I think you forget that for a while. It's not until maybe later on with the Olivia drug storyline where you see that again. So it's interesting that it's always been there, though. She has these both
she
sides.
does swing back into it at times.
Of course, even at Val's bedside before the surgery, Abby can't help but offer her a dig when Val is sort of worried about how Gary's handling all of this. Abby says, "Oh, don't worry. He's going to be fine no matter what happens to you."
Oh, gosh.
Now, in the next episode, which is
now
this
is where
truth,
the moments of
this
truth.
is where Abby uses her sexual wiles again to solve a problem. This is the episode where Ginger's having a baby shower.
Well, this is the one.
It
does kind of go off the rails a bit. This one.
Yeah.
This to me is like a relation to season 1, where the bikers come in.
Absolutely,
it's like the same kind of thing. It's almost like, was this like Sweeps Week?
Yeah, I don't know.
They do this because they're having a baby shower, and then all of a sudden,
why this particular house in this particular community?
Why now?
And these people basically have like rifles, and they're
wearing a balaclava.
And they're just there to take like some jewelry. It's like, really, is this really happening? But yes, it is happening.
It is happening. But
nice
what was so great about it was we again see in action, how does Abby handle a situation like this? And how she handles it is with her sex power. Again, she
starts flirting with the guy with the rifle. His name is Cal. And Laura sees this. And so later on, there's this fantastic scene in the kitchen. This is at Val's house, by the way. And Laura is just sickened by seeing the way Abby is flirting with this guy in this moment. And
because she knows.
She says, "You're such a slut."
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Abby says, "It takes one to know one."
Oh, girl, the War of the Roses.
And there's a slap. Laura slaps her.
Oh, that's right. She slaps her.
And I think Abby in that moment is like, "Oh, okay."
She deserved it.
Well, she deserved it, but I think she also is impressed by Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, so she can see that, okay, she's got something, I think that's interesting. It's an interesting little power play. But Abby explains to Laura that what she was doing was trying to do anything to help them out. And doing nothing would have made her sick.
Right.
So she is, again, always the wheels are spinning, and that's what she's trying to show to Laura. Because, of course, when Laura says, oh, you're such a slut, and she's saying that in reference to Abby flirting with this guy, she really means, of course, because of what she's been doing with her husband. Anyway, the one other thing I wanted to mention about this particular episode was the first little interaction. Because once again, Abby is talking about sex during pregnancy, trying to like kind of talk to Ginger about her experiences when she was pregnant. And she says this in front of Diana, who is there. And Karen is so pissed that Abby would say this in front of her daughter and Abby's niece. But I mean, Diana's pretty...
Yeah, I mean, she's just,
she's pretty hip at that point.
She's almost a woman, or she is a woman, but like maybe she's not ready to have sex.
She's way more hip than her parents allow her to be, let's be honest. But I think it's cool because then later on there is one of those sweet moments between Karen and her sister-in-law, Abby, because Abby says, oh, I've got a plan. And Karen is then worried for Abby's safety, right? She can see, though, that Abby is courageous and bold, and she's going to do something, and she does. She goes in, she tries to seduce the dude, she pretends she's making sandwiches.
She says, I'll make
coffee.
Sandwiches and soup or something. Yeah. I don't know, it's sandwiches and coffee, I think is what it is.
And then she starts kissing this guy, which is crazy. And then she reaches around to get, like, the fire extinguisher.
Oh, but he catches her.
Do people have fire extinguishers in their kitchen? I guess
they do. But the guy doesn't quite buy it. He said, we thought you thought I was going to buy that. So he wasn't completely on board.
So I think he's like almost gonna like attack her, but then magically the SWAT team arrives. But he is so distracted by that then she can actually use the fire extinguisher on him, which subdues him, and then the day is saved. And
right, and she's kind of the hero, and then
yes. Okay, so moving into episode 15, Man of the Hour. We have two storylines going on in this episode as well. We're going to pass on the other one for now and talk about that one later, but we're going to talk now about Jeff returning with visitation with the kids, because this sort of builds what happens at the end of the season. Anyway, Jeff arrives and he asks Abby to kind of prepare more clothes for the kids because they're going camping in the mountains
for the weekend
or something. So, because Abby's wondering, why do you need all these clothes, these extra clothes, right? So she's kind of wondering, or maybe the audience is kind of wondering if maybe Jeff isn't up to something more sinister that we're not being let on about. And over the weekend, Abby calls him several times to check up on him.
She doesn't get an answer.
Like excuse or something like, oh, I got to tell him something about the kids. And he doesn't answer. And then she even calls Mother Cunningham.
Well, she says that she has this bad feeling that he's not coming back, that he's taking the kids away.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense yet because the kids have not been gone that long.
They're still under the terms of their visitation. In fact, she goes over to Richards to ask for his legal advice about what she can do. And he's like, there's nothing you can do. He may return the kids as scheduled.
But what's key here is she's feeling that he's trying to do this. Now,
right, or that there's a pattern, right?
Right.
I think that's what they're trying to establish here.
Maybe what we're seeing is some foreshadowing.
Yes, exactly.
So there's this one scene with Abby where she's got a call from her date who's canceled out on her, and she's all dolled up, and it's amazing. I kept saying, like, she looks like a hooker, high-class hooker. She's got very tight pants on, and then she's got this big white floaty. Coat. I don't know if it's a fur or if it's like Marabou or something, but it's really a showstopper.
She got some like red lipstick
But it did look like what you would see like in the 70s when they would show like a hooker. Streetwalker. But anyway, she looks amazing.
The other thing I did really like is that scene with Richard where she goes to talk to him, because it's a very natural setting. He and Laura are like painting the eaves of the garage, which I just thought was very not sliding, very grounded in reality. And there's, again, a nice moment of vulnerability that's shown here with the Abby, because Laura's like, should I leave you two alone, lovebirds alone, or something like that? And then Abby says, no, I actually would like your input on this as well. She's trying to show Laura that she's also facing something as a mother,
And now that
she respects her.
Now she respects her after the slap.
Yeah.
The slap that was heard around the world.
Yeah, the first. Maybe that one wasn't heard around the world. It was the later one that's heard around the world, but that's the first one.
The first
that
one.
only some people heard. We heard it.
We call it a bitch slap.
Yes, that is what we call it.
The first bitch slap.
So what happens by the end of the weekend? Well, he returns the kids as scheduled.
Yeah, there was an interesting...
She wasn't overreacting. Or was
she? Wasn't overreacting, but I did recall that when she calls the mother, the mother is kind of...
It was like the Peanuts. You didn't hear the mother. You just heard the...
But it was not a good call.
Yeah,
it was kind of like you could see that she doesn't have a very good relationship with the mother. There's not a good vibe going on.
She was not on her team. not on her side.
Completely. Yeah.
In More Than Friends, we are dealing with these sort of friendships that may be potential romantic relationships. That's the theme of this particular episode. It focuses mostly on Richard and Laura. It's a great episode, in my opinion. But there's a really great scene with Abby, who is, I guess, driving home from Knots Landing Motors. Gary is taking her back to the cul-de-sac. And this is also the episode where Val is spending time with Earl Trent.
Oh, that's right.
Think, right?
Yeah, Earl
and
Trent.
So Abby says, hey, have you ever thought about maybe like you and I having dinner together, or maybe just, enjoying each other's company while Val's at school late some night? And Gary says, oh, well, I have to go to my AA meetings. And the vixen that Abby is, she actually suggests, well, don't you think you could miss some of those every once in a while?
Couldn't you miss one of your AA meetings and maybe we could just go out and have some fun?
Gary says, no.
Yeah.
And it is at that moment that I think Abby says to Gary, do I make you nervous?
And he's just kind of like, deer in the headlights.
Right.
So
I thought it was funny because doesn't she even specifically says, like, she uses the word casserole, like they should have a casserole together, which I thought was interesting.
casserole.
Yeah. I don't know if that's an innuendo in there, but at any rate, she talks about this theme of the episode, which is that, men and women can't be friends because there's always this like romantic thing hanging in the air. But then she's like just kind of teasing him. And in fact, at the end of the scene, she just says, oh, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, she said, I'm just kidding. But she did say, we're neighbors. And every time I mention going out and doing something, you get really flustered.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be the end of the world if something happened.
End of the world if something happened. That's right. She's actually intimating that they could take it to some other level that maybe he's never dreamed of at this point. So it's crazy. She's definitely going in. She is zeroing in on that target.
She's taking that knife.
Episode 17 is our final of the 3 episodes that really focus on Abby, right? This is called Designs. And actually, when this originally aired, it was a 2-parter finale for season 2, right? Mm-hmm. So she's really in both episodes quite a bit, let's be honest. But this one, I think, is more chunky with the Abby scenes. Again, we have this Jeff storyline coming back around because he is arriving again.
And finally, the Vanagon arrives.
Yes.
As a vintage lover of cars and everything vintage, I always have dreamed of having a VW bus, but I do really like that VW Vanagon. I think it's like a 1980
cute
camper van.
Super cute.
It's orange and like brown or whatever. It's like two-tone.
It's got a little pop-up tent
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I would kill to have one of those.
Yeah, it would
because that'd be so much fun when you go away for the weekend.
You don't see those very
often.
No,
I don't think they were very well made, to be
So
honest.
Jeff is there to show off this new vehicle that he's going to use to drive them away for the weekend to Big Bear again. So again, you see how this is like a little pattern? In a way, he's trying to like soften it for Abby. Like, this is normal. We just do this. We go to the mountains.
Right. And the kids are all excited about doing this.
In fact, he takes them for a joyride in that moment.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, again, he asks again maybe about like making sure they have enough clothes. So there's this like, again, this comes in this line of like, what are we doing with these extra clothes, right? Now, Abby already has dinner plans that night because guess what? JR is back in town.
JR is back in town.
And JR wants to talk about this engine, right? This is the second part of that deal. That loaning the money also came with some sort of introduction to Sid and somewhat of a exchange where those two can meet up and talk business.
Right, because
so Abby has that dinner and she'd already had a sitter, but when Jeff already happens to be there, she's like, okay, well, I guess you can watch them instead. And what happens that night while they're watching TV at Abby's house, Jeff says to Brian, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just all lived together, just the 3 of us, Olivia, Brian, and him, and they spent all their time together? And he says, don't say this to Olivia because she might say something. So here we can tell
planting
that
the
he
seed.
has the plans, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we do have this dinner with JR at the Japanese restaurant where they're all sitting on the floor. It's a comical scene. We'll talk about that in the other episode. But the scene that makes sense for Abby is that on the way home from that dinner, Abby tells JR, don't give up so easily, because Sid has basically turned him down for this business proposal to work on this engine together. And Abby doesn't want that to be the case. Again, Abby wants to show her usefulness to Gary, really. And so she's saying to JR, don't give up. Maybe Gary and I can work together and we can copy those engine plans and just give them to you, JR. What about that? What do you think
about that? How about that? You like that?
Wow. Here she is going behind her very brother's back.
Yeah. And I will say to you, when she did this, I was just like, she really is deplorable at this point.
I mean, this is definitely, I would say, the harshest thing she's doing this season, aside from blatantly having a relationship with this man who lives next door, who's married. This is the other thing that's just like, what are you doing, right? She even talks to Gary about it, and Gary's like, no, we are not doing this. He's built this relationship with Sid up until this point. Sid gave him a really big chance. Remember, he was a drunk at the end of last season, and he didn't fire him. He kept him on. And they've all got this other stuff going on with the stolen parts, which comes into play in the next episode. So it's at this point where Gary's like, let's just let Sid do his thing. He wants to take his time, make sure the engine is clean, environmentally safe. And Abby's like pushing him like, no, let's get this patent. Let's get the patent without Sid even knowing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big, she's like trying to make excuses that
we're doing it for him.
We're doing it for him. It's good for him.
Yeah.
That we do this for him. And like, it's fine. You know, it's very shady.
It's crazy. So what ends up happening is Abby takes the plans and she does copy them on her own. And there's this interesting moment where I guess Karen has gone to Not Slanting Motors because now that she's had dinner with JR and she knows it's this big thing, she's more interested in the engine. So she wants to see the plans.
Yeah, and Sid's just like,
there.
oh, they're just on the desk. So just go ahead and like check them out. And then she can't find them. But when she's leaving, Abby arrives and she has this paper tube, you know, which you would collect documents in or whatever. It's a
blueprints, whatever.
Yeah, blueprints. Yeah. And so she doesn't clock on immediately that could be what it is. She just knows I couldn't find the plan. She has no idea what she's really looking
And it's at that moment where Abby again says, hey, Karen, can you pick up the kids from school today? I'm busy with something, whatever. So she's like, okay. So these are where all these kind of wheels are in motion for this particular episode for Abby, because Karen then goes to the school to pick up the kids. And Val is also there to pick up the kids because there was a miscommunication. And Jeff is also there because he is now going to pick up these kids because he wants to get them out of town early, right?
Yeah.
So they say, okay, fine. Yeah, Jeff, you're the father. You can pick them up and take them back. So he does. And then later on, they see him packing up that van with all this stuff. The whole van is like full to the top. And they are very suspicious at that point.
Yeah. Karen in particular is super suspicious.
Yeah. So they actually call the cops. And the police are like, yeah. So what's the big deal?
Well, it was kind of a comedy kind of thing, too, with Karen calling up about those children.
Oh, right. We forgot to mention that, like, they had gone in the house and they saw that it had been kind of like ransacked.
Yeah, it looked like it was ransacked, like it was a real mess. You know, Karen is wearing a really cute, looks very 1940s, like kind of boogie woogie.
Oh, yeah, I remember
boogie
that.
woogie bugle boy.
Yeah, the hair
Like she has the hair is like kind of up
almost
40
like a
style.
Buffon,
but it's just a comedy thing where she's on the phone and are like, oh, well, the kids, they're not my kids. They're my friend's kids.
Yes.
And they're not here. They went with their father.
But the house is a mess.
The house is a mess, yeah. And then the guy said, oh, if this was something like the first time I heard somebody talk about a mess and
not slandering
or whatever. So there's a joke there, and it's made to look a little ridiculous.
Well, it's also slowing down the pace of this sort of, what it is a kidnapping, if you will, right? So we're slowing down the pace of this because, again, this kind of pattern has already been established, and the first time around, he dropped them off as scheduled. So we have to give them enough time to get out of town, basically. I was going to say one other thing before we get to that aspect is that Karen has a conversation with Sid about Abby, and she really is concerned that something is going on at Not Slanting Motors, that maybe he's being hoodwinked a little bit, like she's trying to pull the wool over his eyes. So Sid, Abby's brother, goes over to confront her at her house, and he asks right out, like, you know, are you working behind my back with JR and I don't know about it?
Oh, and she completely denies it.
Completely denies it, which is crazy. This is her brother. And then, even though he doesn't really want to because he doesn't really believe Karen, he's really just trying to shut Karen down because he can't believe that Abby would ever do anything like this. He has to say, oh, well, Karen saw you with this poster tube and the plans for the engine were missing at the same time. You know, what happened there? And Abby is one step
She's always
ahead
one
of them
step
all.
ahead. She has the tube at her house. She just opens up the tube and she pulls out this art print, this beautiful art print.
I could not believe that moment. I was like, damn, she
Yeah.
took that extra step.
She took the extra
She must
step.
have clocked that Karen saw the tube, and she was like, oh, I gotta make an excuse
Now,
for this.
what they do show as well is that so Sid leaves, and then the next second, from the inside of the tube, those are the plans. Like she's got a copy of the plans or whatever on the inside of the tube. So it's like magic. You know, it's like a magic trick.
Yeah, it is. It's like
She
a
pulled out,
sleight
hey,
of hand. Sleight of hand.
Sleight of hand.
Wild.
So-
And what I think is extra wild is that she's doing all of this, like outright lying to her brother in front of her young, impressionable daughter.
What a way to set an example, Abby.
Right?
She's such a good mother.
So again, this is still going on with this back and forth with Gary. Gary, I think, has even talked to maybe Val about it as well, and they both agree that you can't do this behind Sid's back. But even when Gary says he's not going to do it, she says, well, I am. I'm moving ahead with it, with or without your consent, and certainly without Sid's consent. And so at the end of that episode, yes, Abby has given the plans over to JR, but she has a contract that has been concocted by some lawyer that supposedly protects her. I don't know what the details
There was
are.
a really funny...
JR doesn't even care, really.
There was a funny line, though, too, about the contracts because he says something about, like, oh, I'll just do things on a Texas handshake. And she says, I live in California.
Yes,
so it was like, that was very...
that was good.
That was a funny line because we all know from living in California.
Is that when they have more champagne?
That's when they had more champagne in the... Yeah, I think
at the hotel, they end up making out. For the first time, I think
sure
we're seeing
do.
them make out. Maybe they did in the other episode. I don't know, but they're certainly making out here. So
I
you know
think
it's-
she sealed the deal.
She sealed the deal because I think that was the thing is like he kind of had been wanting to sleep with her since the last time, and I don't think they did. So he wanted to kind of tie up that loose end. Now, Karen, of course, worried about the kids. She suspects that Abby is with JR, and so she rushes over. There's some more comedic stuff there, her getting up to the room. But she comes in right as the two have just finished having some good old-fashioned 1980s satin sheet sex.
Big hair, satin sheets.
Yes.
It's all happening.
JR comes out wearing that robe, and Karen is basically talking to Abby in the background. If you're here, your kids have been kidnapped. And, Abby's like, oh, you're overreacting. She really wants to, like, finish everything up with JR. The kids can kind of wait again, But Karen is very adamant about this. She says, I'm not leaving until you put on some clothes and come back with me to the cul-de-sac because you're going to see your house and you're going to see that it's ransacked and something is up.
Karen has the sixth sense about a lot of things that happen. This is just another instance, and we're going to see it again in the next episode too, but she has a sixth sense that Abby's, like something's going on with Abby's kids. Something's going on with Abby. Like she knows. So these two, that's why they're always going to butt heads.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like she's got...
Karen can see right through her.
She see right through her, yeah.
Where everybody else is blindsided and
Yeah.
dumbfounded by her beauty. All the men especially. All right, moving into episode 18, which is Squeeze Play. It's the true finale.
Finale, cliffhanger, whatever you want to call
Cliffhanger,
it.
literally, of season 2. Abby is certainly a part of this. In one of the first scenes, she is in the kitchen. Karen comes in and she's sort of tipsy from this fancy lunch that she had with Laura, who had just gotten her expense account at the real estate office. And Karen has seen Gary having a fancy business lunch with these two dudes, right? It's the Roy and Frank, but Karen doesn't know who they are. So she kind of asks who they are, and Abby's there, and she has to cover for Gary because she knows exactly who these two dudes are. But she kind of comes up with some other name that is going to satisfy who these people are in front of Sid. Later at Knott's Landing Motors, Gary tells Abby that Karen is sort of, she's kind of sniffing around what's
She's
going on.
onto
right?
something.
Remember, she was at Knott's Landing Motors the day before, and she wanted to see the books, maybe. She was
That's what it
wondering-
was.
Yeah.
She wanted to look at the books.
Right.
And they didn't have the books.
Right.
There was like a talk.
No, they were in the safe, remember?
They were in the
locked.
safe. Oh, that's
So
right.
that Karen was kind of wondering, why are they in the safe? Like, shouldn't these just be available to anybody who wants to see them? And so when Gary says this to Abby, Abby uses this as an opportunity to say to Gary, hey, listen, things are going to heat up around here. We all better kind of have our cover stories in place, like implying that they're going to have to lie to some people, because I guess the FBI are already on to the fact that these parts were stolen and they are being sort of laundered.
Right. They had showed up, and that's when Karen was there, too. And
that's right. That's right. She saw the detective.
She saw the detective, so she knew something was up, but she could not find the... Right. She was asking a question about the books.
This is only fueling her suspicions that something is going on behind her husband's back. So it's really interesting. There's a great little moment. Again, this is a John Plachette written episode, and there's this like caper where they're, Karen and Richard go to Not Sliding Motors.
I always enjoy the kind of caper part of this, especially those two together are really fun.
Yes, and of course Karen is wearing this like amazing red dress and this like, again, looking like the Matahari spy from that other episode in season 1. We'll talk about the redometer. It goes off the charts this season. We get to the Karen episode. But in this particular situation, we have to deal with the fact that Abby has been padding the books because they've been getting all this extra revenue from the stolen parts that they purchased from Roy and Frank. They were forced to, basically. It was extortion. They were trying to avoid violence, anybody being offed or whatever, who knows. And so they had to all come clean when Richard and Karen go over the books, and they can see that it doesn't add up and that it's actually they say it's like embezzlement in reverse.
Right. Gary has mentioned that he had already paid JR back. So we know that this is the mechanism that they used in order to do that by charging more for the individual parts that they sold. They were able to create some surplus to pay him back.
And they're all saying, well, in essence, Sid should be happy because he's made more money off of this. But it is illegal activity, and the FBI are onto it. And, as this unravels, we know that the FBI is really after, the organized crime behind all of this. But clearly, Gary is in the hot seat here. So Sid calls everybody over to the Fairgate living room to have a meeting, everybody involved.
In like the middle of the night.
That's right. Abby has to come over wearing her pink robe that we will later see in that famous scene, China Dolls in season 3, where she has that slap heard around the world. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy about this scene is that Sid asks Abby flat out, like, what's going on here? And she doesn't completely lie. She says that she did ask JR for
She asked JR, but she said she didn't know anything about the parts, and she had done this for Gary.
Yeah, she knew that people might get hurt if they didn't get this money, but that's like all she knew. She certainly didn't mention anything about JR's interest in the engine and all of that stuff, or the patent. So she's definitely trying to cover her ass, and I think it's really interesting that she does this in front of Gary, who she's interested in.
Yeah, and then Gary is actually saying in front of Sid that she's lying, but she still doesn't accept that. She's not going to admit.
She won't admit it. Like, that's what's weird to me, is that she wants Gary, but she's willing to sort of butt up against him. It's almost like she's like, well, I can deal with him later, but I got to save myself in front of my brother, or this is all going to blow up, right? It's crazy to me because we know what happens to Sid by the end of the episode. And if that's the last interaction that they have, it's very sad. Yeah. And the thing is that if he had lived, what would their relationship have been like?
I don't know.
He would have found out that she was...
He would have found out. Yeah. But he didn't.
That she was a schemer, a conniver, a manipulator behind his back, behind everybody's back. And this, of course, fuels an ongoing feud between she and Karen. It doesn't cause a feud between Gary, though.
No, because I think pretty quickly after all this stuff, when Sid asks him again about Abby, did she know? He says, no, I lied or something. He takes
covers for
which
her.
is so weird. It doesn't quite make sense.
She's already got him by the you-know-what.
Cayones.
Apparently. That's crazy. Yep. Anyway, that made me kind of disappointed in Abby here in this season 2, these final scenes. But of course, the flip side of all this is that the children are still missing. It has now been more than like 2 days late that Jeff has not returned the children. So in essence, it is a kidnapping. So this is when Abby is now looking for any avenue of assistance. She's tried calling Jeff, no answer. And so she goes to visit Mother Cunningham.
She met the mother.
The mother, who is an art teacher.
Yeah.
And she's like, have you heard from him? Have you heard from him? And she says, no, I haven't heard from him. But I promise I'll let you know.
And she said he never really would he's never really in contact with me.
Yeah, but then when Abby leaves, she produces this like weird letter in an envelope.
It's a letter that obviously he has sent her this letter.
Yeah. So he was kind of planning this in advance and had told her kind of maybe what was going on. So maybe she's involved in other ways we don't know.
Seeing Abby alone in her house, drinking alone, watching a game show, which is very much like you would just don't expect that she's going to be watching game shows at home and eating junk food or whatever the heck she's doing. But that's what she's doing because she's at such a loss.
Yeah.
Because she knows this time she really screwed up.
Yeah.
The kids are gone.
Right. Now, this whole storyline kind of wraps up as a cliffhanger for the season for Abby because eventually the FBI, who is kind of monitoring all the packages and things that are coming in and out of the Fairgate household and the family, extended family Abby is part of, the FBI agent brings this package for Abby, and it's a cassette tape.
Yeah, in a big box.
And she listens to it, and it is Jeff who has revealed that he has taken the children because Abby is an unfit mother, and he is starting a new life with them somewhere else. Whoa.
Sorry, Abby.
She freaks out. She breaks down.
Yeah, she literally breaks down. So
she is crying in a panic in front of that poor FBI agent. And then I guess it's relayed to Sid what's going on. Karen calls Sid and says what's happened, and they decide that they need to get a lawyer. So that's where that ends for the season for Abby.
For Abby.
So there we have it. We have Abby's storyline for season 2. How do you think her introduction to the series sort of changed the tone from like maybe what we had seen in season 1?
Oh, for sure. I felt like the beginning of the season, she was still a little innocent. And then halfway through, we start getting these
like a spark.
Juicy storylines and seeing her devious nature, showing us the Abby that we know and hate and love hate
love
throughout the rest of her reign as the villainess,
as the female JR, if you will.
Yeah, the female JR, not Flanagan.
I think it was a very natural introduction to her, and I do think that although the tone has changed, this is the thing we're going to talk about when we get to the brow meter, is that the brow meter score has lowered for season 2. Yeah. Because we're not doing these kind of elegant one-off storylines. We're talking about an issue. I mean, there are a few of those in this season. But for the most part, we are moving towards a more juicy climax, more intrigue, and we do have that. And a lot of that is caused by Abby. Yeah. So I thought it was great. Did you have a favorite fashion of hers over the season?
Well, I had mentioned before that I liked the kind of hooker getup was one of my favorite looks. The big hair overall. The big hair. Love how the hair is getting bigger.
My favorite look was that purple mohair sweater.
Yeah, the 40s.
With the eyebrows. I thought she looked just fantastic there. And I guess the one where she has the dinner with the little barrettes is cute too. But I'd say the mohair sweater for me. Now, what's your favorite Abby moment or scene or line? Do you have one?
I think I loved the hot tub interaction with Richard was just funny and quirky because it was just outrageous to see that. I also did like when she's talking with Judy. And having like the showdown with Judy about how she's going to get Gary. And I think I really liked seeing her in that element because, again, it reminds me of maybe these later seasons.
Yeah, and you can kind of see her interact with another person who's not one of the main characters, which is kind of interesting. Again, revealing her true colors. My favorite scene, I think, is the showdown with Laura in Val's kitchen during the hostage situation. I just thought that was really, really cool too. Again, kind of seeing that spark of who these characters are and how they interact with each other. So yeah, overall, definitely a great addition to the cast of season 2. Anything else you wanted to mention? Any other filming locations or anything we saw? I mean, we'll talk about it.
They kept showing this bar, I think, a few times.
Or the restaurant where they go.
The restaurants
really
and bars.
Some restaurants in this
there were some good
season.
ones.
If anybody knows, let us know.
Let us know.
Actually, I say that also. If you have a favorite Abby fashion from season 2 or a favorite Abby moment, we would love to see it in the comments below as well. All right, now let's get down to the brow meter. This is our gauge of how highbrow or lowbrow an episode or a series is. We're going to focus on the 3 episodes that featured Abby prominently. Those episodes are number 9, which is the one where JR comes to town the first time, right? And Abby has kind of all those little machinations. What did you give that one on the brow meter?
I give it a 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
In the middle.
Like, the JRs, I'm kind of like feel like it's a little reaching.
We should say also that sometimes these brow meter scores are going to be reflective of other storylines that we did not cover in this particular podcast.
Yes,
right?
true.
Right. Okay.
Now, and just another little caveat too is that just because the brow meter isn't as high
as the White
that
Lotus,
doesn't mean that it's not good.
Right.
I still really enjoy the episodes.
Yes.
I just would say like the writing or the storyline is necessarily highbrow.
Exactly.
It's just like it could be more basic.
I'm a 2.8 on that one. So
Okay.
we're kind of in the
All right,
same,
we're close.
Same neighborhood, if you will. Now, episode 11, A State of Mind. This is the first one where Jeff Cunningham comes and they have that whole battle back and forth in the custody battle. What did you give that one on the brow meter?
I gave it a 2.5 as well.
Oh,
don't
okay.
hate me.
Okay.
Don't hate me.
Hey, I went lower. 2.2
Oh,
on that
okay.
one.
I don't feel so bad. I felt like for picking those, but that's just the way it is.
I mean, we're going to get through every episode in this season.
And I know that I know what my brow meters are for some of the other episodes, and I certainly have some that are way higher than this. So,
me too. All right, number 17, Designs. That was the second one where JR came, and also the second one where Jeff came back.
Well, that's probably why it's a little higher than the other ones, but still not super high. So 2.75.
Oh, okay. You were harsh.
I am harsh.
Mine is a 3.35.
Oh, okay.
For that one. Now, what we're going to do is in the end, when we get through all 6 episodes, where we cover all 18 episodes, we will have the full brow meter score for season 2 of Knots Landing. Okay, that was great. So now we're going to be back for our next episode. I'm not going to say next week. It could still be, 10 days from now, 12 days from now, who knows. But we will be covering Ginger and Kenny's storyline throughout season 2. We're going to find out whether or not their sort of tepid storyline improved, stayed the same, got worse.
I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll see. And if you ring that little bell there, you'll get the notification of when the episode drops. So anyway, we want to thank you for joining us for this return back to Knots Landing and this praise of the wonderful Donna Mills as Abby. It's the funny thing, we didn't really talk about her portrayal or the reason why she wanted this role. We should say the last couple minutes here is that she really did want something that was going to be the antithesis of her sort of victim roles or goody girl roles that she had up until that point. And so she definitely stepped into something that really made her sort of like an icon of the 80s, really, right? Fashion-wise, but also for her sort of bravado and courage and business acumen and ability to be a strong woman.
And her smoky eye.
And that smoky eye.
Smoky
Get out your cucumbers, repair those eyes in the morning, okay? Now, I don't know if Ginger and Kenny will be as iconic, but we will find out in the next episode. And until then, we will see you then back on the sack.